Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Aesthetics expert panel on conflict resolution in aesthetic teams, turning tension into productivity. My name is Don Adisha, and at the Business of Aesthetics, we're dedicated to helping aesthetic professionals build practices that are as healthy as their patients. So, over the next hour, we'll be sharing actionable strategies to help you build a positive, resilient, and highly productive team culture. And of course, thank you all for joining us. And we'll give a warm welcome to our panelists, Carlton Washington and Beatrice Zarco. This is a live event, so please use the chat to ask questions and share your reactions. Just before we dive in, I would like to thank our team at Equa Marketing who made this event possible. We're passionate about this topic because a thriving team is the engine behind a thriving practice. So that's what Equa is all about. And here's a little quick tip from our team at Equa Marketing. When potential clients in your area search for treatments you offer on their phone, so whether through ChatGPT, Google, whatever AI-driven search engine they're choosing these days, does your practice actually show up or are they finding your competitors? A powerful digital presence is the single most important asset for predictable growth, and Equa are experts in building that asset. So later in the webinar, we're going to give you a powerful tool to help you measure that online presence. So be sure to stay with us. Now, let's get to know our experts who will be guiding our discussion tonight. So first off, we have Carlton Washington. Carlton is the co-founder and co-owner of one of the nation's fastest growing vitality and aesthetic centers, Forever Young. As a seasoned entrepreneur and franchise expert, he brings the invaluable high-level perspective on how to build and scale a people-first culture that lasts. Carlton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we also have Beatrice Zarco. Beatrice is an experienced aesthetics and laser specialist and a certified aesthetic instructor. With over a decade of on-the-ground experience, training staff and developing teams for leading brands, she brings the critical perspective of how to foster collaboration and excellence at a clinical level. Beatrice, thank you very much for joining us here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. So, as we go through our discussion, you'll see it's structured around the core team leadership, from identifying root causes of conflict to applying practical resolution frameworks and ultimately building a positive and resilient team. So, with that being said, I would like to it's not just nice for just the host and the expert panelists to get to know each other. I would love to know who our audience is. So if you could reach out into the chat and just let us know where you're tuning in from, just to get us acquainted so that during the rest of the session, we'll have a wonderful discussion. So our audience members, find the chat below and just type in where you're tuning in from. Wow, okay, we got Claudia from Boca Raton. Thank you, Claudia, for tuning in. And as our other members join in on the chat, please do remember, this is a live conversation. So ask questions through the Q&A or else the chat, and I'll try my best to bring it up to the experts as we move along. Now, with that being said, let's dive right into the Q&A. Right. So my first question is to you, Carlton. As a franchise leader overseeing multiple med spa locations, how do you ensure that each team embodies the same culture, communication standards, and core values across different markets?
Yeah, so Don, I think the first thing was something that we discussed earlier, which was, trying to model the behavior. I found that in any organization, if leadership is engaged and people can see that and witness that, a lot of the time the organization is going to take on at best the behaviors that the leader is modeling. And so first and foremost, the leadership has to be that person. In our business, we still have 3 corporate stores. And so we really try to model best practices through those corporate stores. But in a franchise system, obviously, it's not corporate. So franchisees are the business owners and they work within the system. And so the way we try to keep cohesiveness is by having a really strong operation team. We believe that we have one of the strongest operations team in the industry. And so their job is really to try to promote consistency throughout the brand. And some of that consistency comes through consistent metrics that need to be hit. And so if you put metrics on behaviors such as customer service, revenue, memberships, how frequently or how well a patient is contacted, and also things like secret shops. When you start to add all these different metrics and they start to roll up, that's how you get a glimpse into what's happening. And then from there, you can go ahead and tighten those behaviors. So in a system like ours, if you have 3 corporate stores that are modeling the behavior and doing what's supposed to happen in the center, and then if you also have high performing, consistent franchisees who are following the process, you use those metrics to basically report on, and then you essentially try to get the other franchisees to adopt those metrics. And the only reason they really want to adopt those metrics is because they want to be successful as well. And so as long as those top tier people are successful, then that sets the standard. That's what we need to model. And then we're trying to duplicate that. But in franchising, it is very difficult because again, you have to get buy-in from many different people. We're in about 20 different states. And so it's very hard work to do so. And we try our best to get as close to 100% as possible. But I have never seen a franchise system that's 100%.
You've never seen a franchise system that's 100%, but
Yeah.
you have built a fantastic operations team. Can we look at how you build that operations team, that leadership? Um,
So I cannot take credit for that myself. I am not an ops guy. I'm a marketing guy. I like to build the business. I'm a salesperson. But when it comes to operations, I really can't take credit for that. We have a couple people, our CEOs had a good eye for some talent. And then also the person that they brought on, who was the talent, is extremely dedicated to her craft as an operations person. And so she was able, same as the franchise system, her team emulates her behaviors. And so these people are just like die hard, in terms of their goals. And I always brag on them because as a person that's operating in a franchise system, a lot of our franchisees they're working 6 days a week, 7 days a week, and these people will run alongside with you and get back to you on the weekends with their families and whatnot. And so, that's the best I've ever seen.
wow. So hiring people is number one.
Yes, and I'm not saying we always get that right, but I think when it comes to our operations division, they've got it pretty good.
Okay. Was that deliberate?
Absolutely, absolutely deliberate. Again, I'm not a compliance person and I'm not an operations person. I've always shied away from those things. They bore me. But I have learned over the years the importance of it and to have respect for it. And so absolutely, so much so that even in the center that I've opened up here in Atlanta recently, the operations person was my number one focus. And I was able to find a good one as well. And it's the only way I would be able to sleep at night is with a good operations team.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Carlton. And for our practice owners tuned in, um, that just goes to show you how important it is when you're hiring the talent that you pick the right talent to hire. And then, of course, using key metrics to measure that talent and keeping them accountable for it as well, right? And letting them be the modelers of behaviors of the rest of the team. Let them take that leadership role. Beatrice, can we move on to you? Yeah. So, in your experience, training providers and staff, what are some early signs of conflicts you notice during team interactions or skill development sessions? And how can leaders address them proactively?
So there'll always be some conflicts when it comes to peers and working colleagues and stuff like that in the workplace. A lot of early signs will be eye rolling, body language. Eye rolling is one of the biggest ones. Definitely body language or not participating when certain things are, like meetings, staff meetings. Um, and to address it, I'd say speaking to whomever or the staff separately and just asking, I sense some tension, what's going on, and kind of opening up those conversations so that everybody's, in a positive state and we're creating a great experience for our patients when they come in, which is number one. And patients can feel it. People feel it when you walk in. Like if there's tension amongst the group or the team, they know. So it's nice to kind of nip it in the butt and get that handled.
And when you're nipping it in the bud, do you actually have a sort of script that you use perhaps to kind of get these things out, or is it just
I
whatever?
mean, more so asking what's going on. I sense some tension. How can I help? Or let's, it'll grow if it's not, again,
Mhm.
nipped in the butt. So we don't want it to grow.
Okay. Were there any times where it actually grew a bit, mm, and yeah, where the problems and the tensions just kept on going, and how were you able to kind of address that when it escalated?
It's always hard because it's different each time. But
Hmm.
again, just talking to everyone, making sure we're all on the same page.
Hmm.
The goal is to help change lives by people
Yeah.
coming in and making them feel better about themselves. So again, creating that experience where they're in a safe space and everybody needs to be on board with that. And I think that's the
Right.
number one role or key to making sure that we're here all for the same reason, and that's to help people feel better about themselves.
Absolutely. And I'm just curious because we tend to not talk about the conflicting areas, right? When things go wrong a little bit. I'm curious, what do you do when things go wrong, when they are not willing to change, uh, for the better? How do you address that? And how do you address it
So
in
we're
a nice
looking
way?
at the behavior instead
Mm.
of the personality. And I
Okay.
think that is also very important, and not approaching it in a negative way. It's more so, how can we help so that this doesn't continue? What can we do? Again, looking at the behavior and not people's personalities. Everybody's personalities are different. You might not like somebody, and that's okay, but we're all here for the same purpose, and that's to, you know, create a positive experience no matter what, whether in the workplace, outside, when the patients come in or clients come in. That's what we're trying to do and keeping it that way.
Okay. And for like the practice managers in our audience and who will be listening to this later
Mhm.
on, perhaps even, how do you differentiate between those two? Just to, have that clarity, behavior and personality.
Well, with practice managers, you have to pick a leader that's really good at being neutral, right? And someone that can help keep the team positive.
Mhm.
Definitely having a leader that is neutral and that's not going to pick sides. It's very easy for people to pick sides, whether it's a team lead, a manager, an owner, what have you. But again, the basis is just keeping neutral.
Okay, okay. I would love to hear Carlton's thoughts on that as well, just because I feel like that works off of the modeling behavior and the operations team selection you mentioned earlier. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's worked in this business for a while is just gonna pretty much laugh and smile about what she's saying. I mean, this is one of the other things. I mean, not, we talked about franchising earlier, but the other thing is just in our industry, it's very unique. It's a very unique industry. A lot of time it's a lot of women, a lot of different personalities. And in order for you to really kind of wrangle that environment, yeah, it really all boils down to who that centerpiece is again, which what she's talking about is essentially what I was talking about a minute ago, which is the operations. That operations person, whoever that person is, has to be able to go between these people and get common ground. And then a lot of time there's not going to be any common ground with certain people, and that has to be fixed fast. And so one of the things we learned over years is like, if you find somebody like that, you know, like she was saying, I just finished going through this a few months ago with the new center here. The rolling of the eyes. I'm in a meeting and I'm like, why is this person? I don't understand. Like, it's a new morning. Everyone's been paid. Everything's fine. Like, why are they rolling their eyes in the meeting? Why do they have their arms crossed like this? Why won't they participate? And there are red flags. And even being 12 years in the business, knowing it's a red flag, you know, I'm trying to see around it. I'm trying to think that there's a solution for it. The truth of the matter is, when it's stuff like that, if you give it one or two tries and it keeps on happening, there is no solution for it. The only solution for it is to find a replacement. And so, on top of, you know, kind of like what we both said, having a person that's capable of dealing with this in an experienced manner. The other thing is to have recruiters on speed dial. That's my biggest thing. If I sense anything is off and it's one of those things where, oh, I've seen this before, I got one recruiter here and one recruiter there, like, hey, bro, what's going on? Who, you know, because that's what hurts our business a lot of time. And it also, it goes to the bottom line. It goes to your P&L. And so offices where people aren't getting along, the energy is not good, and you can't even cross sell. You can't even have an esthetician working with, let's say, an injector, because if they don't work together, they don't like each other, they're not going to refer each other. And then, you know, you don't want them to be best friends per se, but they at least got to get along, because the whole business only works if everybody's kind of on the same page. So
Exactly. And I mean, really appreciating your perspective over there on that, Carlton. And Beatrice, absolutely. For our practice owners, if you ever see someone rolling their eyes, just get the memo.
Always, yeah. I mean, Carlton's right. It's, it's hard to hire people. It's expensive. But, it ends up adding up if you continue to have that bad seed on your team. And it affects everyone. It doesn't matter. Like it just from, like he said, nobody's gonna refer one another. It's just all bad.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the patient experience suffers,
Hmm.
and then of course the P&L also
Right.
suffers.
That's important.
That's a little bit important. And moving back to Carlton right now, from an ownership perspective, right? What leadership practices or structural systems have you found most effective in preventing conflict before it starts, especially as teams grow and new franchises open?
yeah, I hate to be very simple, but it goes back to the core modeling the behavior. If you have a culture and a behavior that is the acceptable culture, things start to come together in that culture like a puzzle. And
Mhm.
so, just like we were talking about conflict before, if you've established a culture and everything comes together like a puzzle, but then this one person comes in and they're not part of the puzzle, then automatically, you know, the culture is not going to work. So, by maintaining the culture and by modeling the behavior, that's how you avoid a lot of these problems. And with experience, when you can spot these things and act on them quickly, that's how you kind of keep momentum. That's how you kind of keep a strong team. And that's how you avoid a lot of these conflicts and a lot of these issues. And so really all the fundamentals are the same. It's modeling behavior, it's setting a good example, it's accountability, an environment of accountability. And I feel like that's how you fix these things. And I think that's the part that's hard and that sucks, because we all think that one day this is going to come to an end, where it's like there's one day where you're going to be able to clock out and everything's going to be okay. And that's not true. Maybe at best it'll be 80% of what it is, right? And if that works, then fine. But it's never going to be the same as when you have a CEO or a leader in there that people believe in and that is able to facilitate that culture, because that's an intangible thing that really, really matters. And so I hope that kind of answers your question, but all these
Yeah.
things to me keep on going back to the same thing over and over again, which is why in this business, I tell people a lot of time, this business is not for everybody. I don't really think leadership's really for everybody. A lot of people try to make it seem easy. And I think in this day and age, recently, I totally realized in the last 10 years with social media, um, a lot of people have been essentially lying and posing as business leaders or as entrepreneurs, and they make it look like that's a person sitting at a pool, with a cocktail and a laptop, and they're killing it or whatever it is. I haven't met anybody to date who runs a significant small business or medium or big size business that is not fanatically involved in a way that's not attractive, like that's not like in an obsessive manner, on the go, moving to the very end. Even in my wife's company, the CEO founder is like 70 years old, but I mean, he's involved, and so and I think the day that they're not, you will see a shift in the profitability, you'll see a shift in the culture, things will change, and it'll never be the same. And so I think that's something that people really need to understand too. It's like you gotta be involved, and it's gonna be whatever you make it. And as soon as you step away, it's gonna be at best a fraction of what it was before.
Okay. Now, when you started this conversation, you said that establishing the behavior from the get-go, right? Establishing a culture, right? A set of behaviors. What if the person that is coming in has great ideas? Though, what if they have great ideas and they're just not fitting in the culture that well? Does the culture ever change to match the person, even if they're great?
I think good ideas are always welcome, but I think that good ideas are welcome from people who crawl before they walk, right? And so respect is key. So a smart person who's going to have a value add is going to respect the culture first, get buy-in, earning that buy-in. It doesn't matter if they're the top or the bottom of the organization, you earn the buy-in.
Mm.
And if something's working, you don't want to break it, right? But you can always improve it. And so I think some people with their ideas, they want to break things, and some people want to improve things. And so I think there's always room for improvement. But I've always seen that come with someone who earned it. And I've always seen people have a common sense enough who have made those impacts to be like, okay, I see what's going on here. Let me just show you guys what I'm doing over here that adds value. And you're like, wow, you did that, like, let's do it. Let's go. Versus like, I'm just gonna do this over here. And so I just think it comes from a respect for culture first. And then I think a good culture is never gonna turn down a bad idea. But I think that the person who's got the idea, if they don't have a respect for the culture, I don't think it's ever gonna blend in or work or assimilate.
So it's a mutual respect thing, is it? Absolutely. And the person, even if they are a fantastic leader, if they have great ideas, if they don't respect the culture that is already established and blend with it, and then slowly integrate their ideas in a way that is acceptable and easily adaptable to the already existing team, I mean, that's the way to go, it seems. All right. Beatrice, the next question's for you. How can practice leaders and trainers create a feedback process that corrects mistakes or performance issues without discouraging staff or creating tension?
Again, neutral. Um, I'd say on how you approach things in a sense, like saying, let's say you're in a consult and it kind of goes off. Instead of saying you were wrong, with saying this or doing this. Just kind of, let them know that it may have impacted, like, I looked into the console, I'm listening to it, the tone became short, and I worry that it impacted the patient's trust. So, in that sense, creating trust with the patient and with your peers and whoever you're managing is when respect is so huge. Carlton's on top of that. Everybody has egos in our industry, and I'm all for it. Like, I want you to be successful. You should be successful and, you know, believe in yourself. But kind of toning down your egos is huge too, and respecting everyone's, position and what they're doing. Everybody's been hired to do something. And everyone's an expert in what they do and what they're bringing to the company. So, considering those things.
Okay. So what I'm understanding is, still be patient with, your teammates, as well as have a have a check on the tonality, right? Have a check on the tonality. It might be leading on a bit more than what you initially thought. Um, from yeah, and we'll move on to Carlton. Carlton, so growth often brings new challenges in maintaining unity. How do you balance rapid expansion with keeping teams aligned, motivated, and connected to the brand's mission?
It's a heavy lift right there. Um, man, I think that it's a brutal process, meaning like that's not 100%. That's not 100% thing right there. That is something that you're going to do your best on. And what happens with growth, it seems like all the time, is that some people grow and some people get outgrown in the process, depending on the direction of the company. And so that's what I've seen as you grow. I'm not a private equity guy. We have private equity involved in our business now. Private equity and business, and people that acquire businesses for a living and do this kind of stuff. They look at the business as a business, as a piece of paper, and they manipulate it in that manner. For me, I don't think that's my forte, because I am very into the intangible part of business. I like people. I like to go in and check on my people and talk to my people and all that. One of the things that really has always affected me is when I get to know people, it's very hard for me to move them around like a chess piece, or let go of the guy that, the 65-year-old guy that's been in the position for a while, but can't integrate with AI or can't learn the new software. And it's like, if you ask me, screw it. He's just going to stay here forever and we will figure out something for him to do. But as an investor or someone that's looking at it differently, they're like, no, this guy's got to go. Like, it's a business decision. And so, for me, that's hard. That's difficult. I don't like it. It doesn't bring me joy, and I'm not really very comfortable doing it. We could do it if we have to, but if someone's trying, it makes it hard because sometimes trying is not good enough when you are rapidly expanding. And I understand that, and that may be the truth. It is the truth. Like, you can only go as fast as how fast your people are. And so what ends up happening is when you're going through stages of growth, so you're going from one, let's just say it's in the med spa industry, you got one med spa, that's going to be very different than when you go to two. And then when you go to 2 to 3, that's a little bit different. Then you go to 3 to corporate expansion or franchise expansion. Now this is a completely different business now. So now you're not the guy that's shaking everybody's hand when they come in and you're doing the team huddles in the office. That's not happening anymore for you, the person that's going along with the growth. And the people that are going along with you while you're growing, they're not able to do that anymore either because they have more responsibility. And so the little things that were there before, they get lost. And some people just can't handle that. And they'll say things like, this isn't the place that I knew. This is not the place that I was at before. Or in our industry in general right now, you're seeing like private equity come into expansion of all of these med spas. And so you have a lot of people who've been there for a while, they're just like, I just don't want to sell. I don't want to sell. I've never had to sell before. I have my way of doing things. I don't want to do that. And so a lot of those people just say, I'm out. I can't do it. And so the people that come in behind them, though, they come in basically acclimated to the new way of doing things. And so the person that's coming in at the middle mark or the higher end mark is going to be a different person. And to them, that's going to feel like what's normal for the business. So essentially, it's like a snake or a reptile or a crab shedding their scale or shedding their shell, and a bigger system comes out of that or whatever. And the shell or the skin basically represents people who help get it that far, but no longer are with that process. And so I don't like that part of growth, honestly, because it takes out the heart and soul sometimes of what you're doing. But yeah, I don't like that. That's not something I'm good at, but I've been through that process in an organization.
Okay. I mean, that was a bit poetic in a way. Uh, but at the same time, it just went back to the point of how sometimes you just have to let go of certain things, or perhaps it's the perspective, is it, Carlton? Like the unity, um, it might be evolving, right? When you are looking at a business that has grown to over 5, 10 locations, it's completely different to one that is just a small business in a single location.
Yeah.
S- yeah, and Carlton, with that being said, keeping teams aligned, during growth is key, and a major part of that is ensuring the practice has a steady stream of high quality new patients, which reduces stress and allows everyone to focus on their roles. That's a perfect opportunity to mention the gift from our team at Eco Marketing. Um, so I'm just going to share my screen real quickly. Right. So, as a thank you for being here to our wonderful audience, we are offering every attendee a complimentary marketing strategy meeting. It's a true strategic session valued at $900, where our team will evaluate your online presence and deliver a customized plan to attract more of the high intent clients you want. And it's truly next logical step to ensuring your team's success is fueled by predictable growth, especially when we consider that today's search is so defined by AI driven search. So what our marketing specialist does is they check up on your GEO, generative engine optimizations scores, as well as the AEO, answer engine optimizations, just to ensure that your practice is being found regardless of where your client or your ideal client is searching from. So ensure that you get this audit, which is completely non-obligations. You can take this roadmap, which our team will provide during the meeting, and show it to your team, discuss it with them, or discuss it. Take it wherever you want to go. It's completely non-obligatory. And yeah, just click. The link is currently in the chat box below. So it'll take 30 seconds to fill up the form, and just get your booking in. With that being said, let's get back to you, Beatrice. Um, so, Beatrice, when personality differences, as we talked about a little bit before, or skill gaps create friction, how do you reframe those situations to strengthen teamwork and enhance patient care?
Um, I've had a situation recently where I've had three injectors, and they were all very different personality wise. One was great at, um, you know, social media and just big on it, did great work, would focus solely on her social media, and that's how she got her patients. She was always busy. Had another injector who was kind of middle of the road, did some social media, but not really. But she was also busy. And then I had my third injector who just didn't want to do social media. Not her thing, nothing, nothing. Like we couldn't get her to do anything. So it was very hard for us to, kind of get her to get on board with that. But our approach with that was that she was more private and had more high-end clientele that don't want to be on social media. So that's how we kind of diverse each one of them separately. Because again, everybody has different personalities. I can have somebody that loves me, and then I can have somebody that hates me and never wants, you know what I'm saying, wants me to do anything for them, or vice versa. Or I might have a patient that we just don't get along, and it is what it is. But I like to have different personalities on teams just so that I am able to accommodate every single person that comes in and everyone is being helped. So no one's leaving because, well, I didn't like their injector, or I didn't like their esthetician, or I didn't like this person, so I'm not going to go back. No, I have three different women or men that are able to provide different, personalities. So that's how I deal with that in a
So you
sense.
kind yeah, so you kind of reframed it where it was initially seen as a little bit of a area for improvement, but then considering the larger situation, you played it as a strength, isn't
Hmm.
it? How important
Yes.
is it to like recognize these things? Because it would be easier to just say, you know what, you're not playing by our rules. We
It depends
gotta,
on your practice. I mean, you
okay.
have huge, bigger companies that have, like Carlton, he's franchise, more in that sense. And then you have your smaller, businesses that it's a little bit more, you have to be really transparent, right? And it's not as big as you may want it to be, or you don't want to be that big. So making sure that every single person, it's a personality basis and everyone's being accommodated.
Right. Absolutely. So let's look a bit, dive a little bit more deeper into those boutique practices. W- Are is that what makes that practice so much more interesting to go to, or sometimes, would be chosen by a patient over a bit more of a larger practice?
I think experience.
Okay.
I'm huge on a customer or patient coming in and having a wonderful experience from the second they
Mhm.
walk in and from the second they walk out, and have it be consistency. So I'm huge on consistency. So again, making sure, and it might work for, I might want to go to a franchise. I mean, and then that's okay. Or a
Yeah.
bigger facility. I might want to go to the small mom and pop because that works for me. It's more what's the word? Intimate. But
Mhm.
again, everyone is so different. And sometimes I may not want to go to my intimate place and I want to go to the other place where it's larger and they have more stuff. And, it's just, again, it just depends.
Okay. And how are you able to translate that so that your patient sees you before they even, because unless they come inside the practice, they won't know that there are these three different identities, personalities. Is there something that you do differently that allows those patients to know
I would definitely
beforehand?
take advantage in social media, like as far as the business goes, introducing your staff, making
Hmm.
sure like their bios online states, hey, this is so and so. She's our, social media guru. You always see her. You can visit her on her, on her social platform. And this is so and so. And making sure to say, and our other injector, she's more of our private, she does more high profile patients. And she's not so much on social media, but come in and see her and you'll love her.
Okay.
Making sure you market them each separately in a positive way.
Wow. I mean, you completely changed the situation upside down without really, doing a lot of unnecessary things, but rather just you making best use of what's already there, just shifting the perspective a little bit.
Mhm.
So thank you very much for that, Beatrice. And I think a lot of the practice owners, they can really get something invaluable out of it because just by shifting your perspective, you can really shift your ROI as well and increase that profit statement without incurring more investments. Um, Carlton, next question's over to you. How do you encourage accountability within your organization while still empowering team members to take ownership of their work and decisions, even when conflicts or mistakes occur?
I feel like I'm going to be a broken record here on this one because it goes back to the same thing every single time. I think in order to get accountability, you have to be accountable. And that looks like something I learned a long time ago going into the business. If you take it serious, people are watching, right? And so in the inception period, people are watching to see if you make mistakes. And in our organization, I think we didn't want people to see us make mistakes. The partner didn't want to see the other partner make a mistake. And if you messed up, you're like, oh crap, what? I screwed up. I screwed up. And getting in the habit of telling people that when it happens, but also getting in the habit of making it as few and far between as possible. And so in a small organization, it starts off small like that. A few people watching how other people react and saying, we're, getting visibly frustrated if a mistake happens. And accountability to me looks like beating yourself up. It looks like, wow, like I could have done better, and making and expressing to other people, like, I know I could have done better. And then hopping on any grenade, essentially anything that goes wrong, and saying, oh, that was my fault right there. And I'm going to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And so when the organization grows, the next person that comes on, they kind of understand that as well. Like, hey, they're going to take ownership if it goes wrong, but they're not going to get it wrong. And so you're creating an environment as you stack people where people don't want to screw up. And it's not because some kind of punitive thing is going to happen per se. It's pride, right? And it's accountability and it's ownership. And again, we talked about that in the beginning. You're modeling that behavior. And so if you can do that, especially in our business, I mean, our business is part aesthetic, part wellness. But what we notice is that people who have similar behaviors and traits outside of work, a lot of the time tend to be able to be the same type of people that can do this. And so if someone is into fitness, for instance, there's some accountability and discipline there, right? They're accountable to their appearance, they're accountable to their health. And so if you can look for these kind of clues and signals when you're hiring, and build, again, like we talked about, a culture of accountability, a culture of ownership, it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. It just means that when things go wrong, people are more transparent about it. They feel comfortable enough to also admit that they made a mistake, and there's some vulnerability there. And so I think, that's something that in the early days in our company we built. And I think people knew that there was going to be some compassion, but then also be like, dude, like, damn, you messed up bad. Like, that's bad. But if you can fix it, 9 times I think you can fix it, fine, but let's just not do it again. And so I hope that's clear. I think it's a little bit of compassion mixed with a high level of ownership, a high level of accountability, and modeling that behavior, and duplicating that consistently.
Absolutely. You summarized it up perfectly there, Carlton. It's just, I'm curious to find out what is, okay, your franchise, you built it on those principles, right? So that is the final outcome if a person were to actually take these accountabilities into action, is it? And there's no other way.
Well, in a franchise system, you are trying to set a standard, but not everybody's going to follow. And so if I'm not wearing this shirt that I'm wearing right now with the brand on it, usually I have a shirt that says follow the process. Anytime we're on a screen like this and there's 50 franchisees on it, the shirt says simply follow the process. It's a message to the system to try to stay in line with that. And again, it's like, people who don't really abide by this, you can see we rank all of our franchisees. We rank all of them. So anybody that's been open a year or longer and they lack these parts of the culture, simply going to also show up in their rankings. It's going to show up in their revenue. It's going to show up in their performance. And so you can't get it perfect, but I also think it's safe to try to alienate that. I for a long time, people didn't want to share the reports. They didn't want to share their rankings. They didn't want to share their performance. And I really fought for the opposite of that, because when you allow people to hide their bad behavior and the consequences of it, they don't have to be accountable for it. But as soon as you put 65 people on a screen and say, hey, these people at the top are doing this, what are you guys doing at the bottom? Now there's some shame that's associated with it. And if there's any hope for anybody, it's that shame will help shape your behaviors. And if you have no shame and you can't perform, then you're just screwed. So that's as good as it's going to get. And I personally like shame as a tool because shame works for me. Shame is why I don't want my staff to see me make mistakes, because I'm personally ashamed, whether it's in front of them or it's behind closed doors. I'm ashamed of knowing that I can do better and not doing so. So I think that's as good as it gets, though.
Absolutely. Holding yourself accountable means holding yourself to that high standard which you expect from others. That's where it starts from. Thank you very much for that, Carlton. Really appreciate it. Beatrice, so you worked with many practices on staff training. How does consistent education and professional development help reduce misunderstandings and build a more collaborative, confident team?
I'm on mute. Sorry. It
Mm.
creates a shared language. So when everyone hears the same protocols or hears the same things, there's the consistency. It eliminates the I thought you knew, or we're doing this wrong, or it also builds the confidence with the collaborative team. So everyone's working in the same playbook on that end.
Okay, and can you give us a bit of a process as to what worked for you in the past?
Definitely having the same protocols. If
Okay.
a doctor or an injector is recommending a pre-op or post-op, everyone's on the same page. We're not all giving different instructions or yes, everybody has their own opinion and it's okay to share that, but it needs to be consistent. If again, you have an esthetician or estheticians, you guys have a facial, having that consistency. If I don't have an esthetician, that same esthetician that you always see, you can always see my other esthetician because you're going to get the same exact service. So everybody's on the same board. Education wise, taking, different classes, with it being the same thing. Again, the consistency of learning a skincare line or learning how to do a treatment, it's all the same and everyone's doing it the same way.
Okay, you mentioned that conflicts can come across if people were to say, "I thought you knew better," or "I thought you knew how to do this," but what how would you address that kind of situation and that doesn't happen again?
So again, that goes back to what Carlton was saying, kind of on the psychological safety, on fostering like a no blame environment where so it's okay that you're doing it. It's fine. Let's just correct it
Mhm.
because this is how we do it here. Right. So
Right,
yeah,
and no blame, but highly accountable culture.
makes
Just
sense.
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Did we
Sorry, you
freeze?
were.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Carlton. I would like to move back over to
Freezing.
you. Yeah, I think Beatrice is all right. Yep. You're all right there, Beatrice?
Yes, I'm good. Sorry,
Mm.
it keeps freezing.
No, no worries. We really appreciate you being here despite. your situation over there.
Thanks.
Carlton, yeah. So in a franchise model where owners and staff may be having various levels of experience, what strategies help build resilience and collaboration across the entire network where tensions or challenges arise?
Across the entire network, when tensions or challenges arise, I think it goes back to accountability. I think
Mhm.
I think that nobody wants to hear anything other than a solution and acceptance of if something's not going. Look, crisis is going to come from something that's not working. And if something's not working and it's systematic, that means it's probably the fault of either the franchisor or some type of act of God, something that's going on out of your control. So I mean, it could be a COVID or something like that. That's one thing. And that, so for instance, it's a perfect example. If a COVID situation is happening, people want a solution. Okay, our business is shut down for 2 months or 3 months. We don't know what's going on. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to lead us through this? What is that going to look like? And what's your plan? Not only do people want a plan, they want updates and they want communication and they want to know that you're in it with them. On the other hand, frustration and crisis is going to come from something that where the system's broken and the system's not working. And in those situations, again, people want to know first accountability. What are you going to do to fix it? And they want communication through that. And so the only way to do that is to communicate your way through it. And if you're putting up excuses, especially in this day and age, I mean, 10 years ago, you could probably get away with some excuses. 20, 30 years ago, yeah, you know, your networks aren't going to be as tight, communications not as tight, email not as tight. So yeah, there's not going to be as much of a uprising, I would say, in an organization, right? It's not going to be as severe. But now, I mean, if you BS somebody, you know, they're in a chat group, they're on social media, they're on AI simultaneously. They've got data systems that are you know, everything is accounted for. And so if there's a systematic problem, there's no running from anything, I think, in 2025, especially in an organization, is just not wise. And so you got to be living transparent. And if something's wrong, you take a deep breath and you either come clean and come with a solution or get prepared for, you know, issues. And the issues are typically going to be at first, it's going to be a lot of stress. It's going to be a lot of difficult, uncomfortable interactions with people. And then the next thing is typically litigation, you know, or something similar. And so I think the best way is to just face things head on. And I don't think there's any way around it these days. You know, cover ups and especially in the digital age is just not wise.
Face things head on. And Carlton, I want to ask a follow-up question to that, which is from a perspective of someone who is a bit down the line of, you know, the C-suite. They see that there is a systematic error that is, you know, taking place and is costing the business its profits and, you know, perhaps even the patient experience, right? How can they raise that? And how can it be brought to the attention of, like, you know, upper management in a way that doesn't seem like it's undermining the upper management, but also showcasing, bringing light to a situation that is systematically bringing things down?
I think it depends on the size of the organization. I mean, I worked in Fortune 500, you know, companies, Fortune 100 companies where maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe that's not in your best interest. Maybe if it is, it's just causing more problems that it's not. And so maybe that's not the route you want to take. Depends on, you know, on your trek or your pathway in that company. So that's a 50-50 thing. And I that's why I got out of that. I didn't like that. But in smaller organizations, like ours, I think again, you know, we talked a minute ago about culture. We talked about improvement. We talked about a good culture being open to improvement. And so I think that in a smaller organization, smaller, middle-sized business, I think that if you are respectful and you are well documented, and if you have good intentions, and again, I think, we talked about this before, not in a negative sense where it's this gossip, where you've shared it with all these people, but you're like, hey, this is not working. And I'm seeing that over here, there's all of this data, and it all points back to this not working or this process not working. In a medium-sized organization, I don't care if it's a 50 million, $100 million, $500 million company, it's probably in your best interest to go to that C-suite or to the person who cares. Because a lot of times the middle level manager might not even care. They might not care, and it could be something that impacts everyone. They're too short-sighted. So I think those are opportunities. I think those are opportunities for the person themselves, because if they are a part of the culture, they're not a part of the problem, they truly want to help, and it's a real problem, I guarantee you the person in the C-suite, the person who has ownership or equity in that company is going to be like, thank you. Thank you. And by the way, what's your name again? Like, who are you? Because why didn't my other person catch this? And so I think it's an opportunity. Again, in Fortune 500, 100 companies, those are like countries. Those are like there's a lot of politics involved. But in a real living, breathing company with people who have ownership stake, where people have consequences, I think that's welcome. And if I run this very small organization, but if someone, even if it's my guy at my front desk, if he tells me there's a problem, I'm gonna listen. Or I'm gonna listen. And if there's a problem, then we're gonna fix it. And I'm gonna be very, very thankful for that person sharing it.
Right. Thank you very much for your answer, Carlton. And, for our practice owners listening in who are looking to scale to the level of a franchise, definitely accountability. There is no other fancy smancy tactics around it. It's accountability and definitely taking on that head on if you see an error, and of course keeping everyone well communicated with the solution that you're going to provide to them. Did I catch those things all right, Carlton?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. And Beatrice, so aesthetic practices can be high pressure environments, truly. What daily habits of culture or culture practices do you recommend to maintain positivity, communication, and mutual respect among team members?
Definitely there are two that I believe in. There is the 5 minute huddle, team huddle every morning, just to get aligned. Um, Not problem solving, but just to get aligned. And then I have a second one that I like to do, like, let's say at the end of the week, which would be like a glows and grow. So you tell me what your win is and where you need improvement. So again, this holds communication within everybody, and then there's mutual respect in that case, in those cases.
Right. Um, Now, how does a team, like the growth and goals, how does that, can you give us a little agenda of how that may look like at the end of the week?
So it could either be done as a group or it could
Mhm.
be done one on one. Up
Mhm.
to you, however you want to approach it. Some people don't want to share their mistakes or accountability in front of other people, but or they're too intimidated. But again, it's creating that family environment, which is what we want anyways, where it's okay to share and everybody trusts one another. Um, and that would just be like, let me see. I walked somebody to their car and turned their AC on after their laser treatment. That's a win, right? What do I need to work on? Um, I didn't talk to so and so all week because I was mad at her, and I need to work on communicating, or not being so angry or taking things so personal, you know, something to work on.
Right. So we're not only talking about the key KPIs, right? We're more talking about even experiences as wins. Is that
Yeah.
important? I mean,
I mean,
how do
they're
you
both
balance the both?
important. They're
Yeah.
both important, right? So
Hmm.
it just depends on what your employee wants to share, what somebody wants to share. Um, and then finding that common ground for everybody, or there's a safe space.
W- It's easy to understand why KPIs are important. Can you uh, tell me why are the other things important, like turning
Again,
the
it
AC
creates the
on?
experience when your patient walks in, right? It goes back to all of that. And people are in there trusting you with their body, their face, and they're insecure. They don't feel safe. And if they don't feel safe in the place when they walk in and they're sensing the tension, why would I come back there? Why would I come
Right.
back here if I don't feel comfortable? Everyone's fighting in here. Who knows what's going on? You can feel the tension when you walk in. Like everything is important in our business, not just making money, but also at the same time making sure that people are going to return because they feel safe and they're having a great experience.
Absolutely. And that just doubles down on a patient's lifetime value. Um, Absolutely. So thank you very much for that, Beatrice. And we are approaching end of our session. I just want to ask our Carlton and Beatrice, what is the one key takeaway you would hope that our audience members take away from this discussion tonight? Carlton, let's start with you.
I think if there was one key takeaway, it would have to be the thing that I keep on repeating over and over and over again is the accountability piece and the modeling the behavior. I'm not saying this because I'm perfect or I'm a perfect model, and I'm not saying this because I even like the fact that that's what I found. It's just that anytime I've tried to sidestep it or anytime I've tried to get around it, I just find that there's just no other way to operate at a high level, to perform or win at a high level. Everything that you're going to do in I think in any business that's going to be successful is probably going to be harder than you expect it to be. And people are watching. And in today's day and age where it's very difficult to find good help because the fundamentals just aren't there like they were 20, 30 years ago in terms of employment and employees. I think it's just really important that no matter if you're a leader or if you're just in the organization, that every day you go in an organization, you're like, I'm going to be the best person that I can because it counts. It counts whether you're, at McDonald's. It counts whether you're in a med spa. It counts, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. I don't think people realize that every day when you're at a McDonald's, and I don't know, maybe Beatrice can co-sign this or not. I mean, everywhere I go, I'm always open and looking for some kind of talent. Like and the talent, the entry into our industry, people have a hard time getting this industry, by the way, first of all, in the wellness industry and the aesthetic industry. It is still not to the point where you can just step your foot into the industry and just with open arms, and so I think that all of this is wrapped up in the accountability. All this is wrapped up in being the person that you want the people around you to be. And I don't think you can ever fail if you're just showing up as your best self every day, even on your bad days, even on the days that your dog died, even on the days where you're not feeling the best. Because I think when you start being that person, if the culture is not there, then you become the culture. And everything just starts to gravitate to you. Not overnight, not in 6 months, but after a consistent time period. And so I would just say modeling the behavior. It's once you accept that you're gonna have to do the hard thing that nobody wants to do over and over again, and then it just becomes a part of what you're doing. And so that's the only thing that I found that works, whether it's in leadership, whether it's in the good businesses that are in our industry. Usually those people are all the same. They're doing something right. That the thousands of other people that want to be like them can't do or just can't do it consistently.
Right. Um, Beatrice, what's your key takeaway?
I mean, I completely agree with Carlton. I definitely add to that in a sense where appreciation is huge too. Appreciating your employees, appreciating your team leaders, not just by, everybody has different love languages. I may have an owner that doesn't want to or isn't good at giving like a thank you, right? So if you're not good at giving that thank you verbally, hand over a gift card. If somebody's doing great work for you and bringing in that money and creating a great experience for your patients that are coming in, do something to appreciate, and be grateful for people that are coming and showing up and being loyal and keeping that standard and that morale in the workplace. I think is very important as well.
Accountability and appreciation seems to be the key takeaways of our discussion here tonight. And with that being said, I would like to, yeah, with that being said, Carlton Washington, Beatrice Zarco, thank you so much. Thank you both so much for bringing so much clarity, providing such actionable advice, practical advice on this, complex topic. It was a privilege to host this conversation. And I also want to extend a huge thank you to our audience, your engagement, and uh, we really appreciate you investing an hour of your valuable time with us. And as we wrap up, just a final reminder, if you want to turn tonight's insights into a concrete growth strategy for your practice, I strongly encourage you to book that complimentary marketing strategy meeting with our team. It's the perfect next step to build a plan for your success. The link is in the chat one last time for you. And our audience members, as you exit this webinar, you will be given a pop-up survey. It'll take around 30 seconds to fill up. If it would be much appreciated because we would love to hear your feedback so that we can improve these products for our aesthetic community. And panelists, just hang back just for 2 minutes for final little feedback. And of course, on behalf of the entire team at Business of Aesthetics, thank you again for joining us. My name is Don Adisha. Have a productive and positive rest of your week, everyone. Good night.